Hi, this is Matthew Tait from Fork in the Road, your channel for transformation, where you will find different ways and different methods and different ideas to get your mind and body back to calm and to get the most out of your life. Today, I would like to share with you my book series on anxiety. Why am I doing a series on anxiety books? That is because they have so many great methods to help you get back to calm, to help you manage your fear responses, to help you enjoy your life again. Well, this is my very first book review, and this one right here, 52 ways to find peace of mind. Anxiety happens. This one is written by John P. Forsyth and George H. Effort. 52 ways to find peace of mind. Anxiety happens. This book was a very easy book to read because it doesn't get caught up in the science. It references it, but it doesn't get caught up in it. What it does is gives you a range of 52 activities or exercises to get your mind back to calm and train your mind and your body back to a calm and centered place. Everybody needs that, don't they? And so with that, this book is a very useful pocket guide on how to influence your own mind and body back to calm. It's a how-to guide, how to reduce your anxiety. And I find it's really useful in many ways. There is obviously 52, you could do one a week. And the real challenge with a book like this is that there are so many good ideas in there. How do you properly test them out? Well, one at a time. That's all we can do. So ones, and I've circled some of the ones here that I like in the book. Drop the stories. Drop the stories is all about one of the activities. Drop the stories is about the word I am this, I am depressed, I am anxious, I am fearful. There's a story that goes around that, and I really like that because the meaning we get from our life is from our stories. And if you can change the story, you can start to shift your life. I really love that idea. Another tidbit from this is moving with barriers. So if you've got a barrier in your life, there's a way of flexing around that instead of being so rigid and fighting it. Unhooking from the past is another one, which I've circled, and it is very much that we can get caught up in our past. So the 52 methods are quite helpful. There's actually some in there that will really resonate with you. And so that's the trick, is to find the 2 or 3 methods that resonate with you when you're reading the book and try those out. This, I reckon, is the secret to reading any book. Otherwise, it just becomes information that washes in one ear and out the other. And I love application because I've read so many books where I've not applied the information and not got the true value. But we can only apply so much at any one time. So my tip is to pick 3 of these and then test them out in your everyday life. That's the best way to get the most out of this book as a starting point. But the reality is it's a resource to help you move forward in your life and to handle those moments in the moment. But first, you've got to train your brain up, because up to this point, your brain has been trained to do whatever it's doing. And so we have to try and train the brain back to a calm state, the natural state. And maybe you've never been there before, or it's been a long time since you were that calm. So pick 3 and try them out. Test them out over a period of a week to get the most value. Some of these activities are only 1 or 2 or even 3 pages long, so it's very easy to read. And you can just sit in bed at night and read just a few pages and have one activity to think about. and ponder, does this resonate with me? And so it doesn't take much reading to get through 2 or 3 activities and decide which one resonates with your life and what might be holding you captive in your anxious or anxiety story. So that is really useful and really helpful for those who are not big readers, who just want to find a solution. Anxiety Happens is a good starting point. One of the themes of this book, Anxiety Happens, is to turn and face it, which is an interesting concept when you're talking about anxiety. And one of the causes of our anxiety is our avoidance of the anxiety. And that avoidance raises the anxiety significantly. Now, of course, if you've got your saber-toothed tiger, you've got your crocodile, you've got your brown bear who might be chasing you, your anxiety is perfectly warranted. But about 99% of the time, that anxiety thing is not there. It's not real, but our brain makes it real. Or it makes it 10 times worse than it actually is. And so the first activity I'd like to share with you today is this one here, number 10. It says, do the opposite. And that seems to be a theme through the book. There's probably 3 or 4 main themes that are going on. One of them is doing the opposite. One of them is facing your fear in a variety of ways. Sometimes it's make it bigger. Sometimes you've got a feeling inside, make it even worse. It's like try and make this thing even worse than it currently is. It's like your brain has a default switch, like a switchboard on an electrical circuit board. There's a safety switch that turns off as soon as the system is unsafe and overloaded. And so like a switchboard with the electrical circuits, your brain will flick off the switch and will start to reduce the anxiety because it now seems silly what you're doing. Very interesting idea. And so the words that I'm seeing in here are rigid avoidance. Actually increases our anxiety. When we have, what this does is it shrinks our lives. And when your life gets smaller, you find that your anxiety goes up. But when your life is bigger and more expanded, your anxiety may well come down, depending on the context, of course. I've written down here is avoidance of your emotional pain, which is really what our brains naturally do. It runs away from the pain because it doesn't want to deal with it. Although, understandable, it's simply bad for you and your life. Totally on board with that. And so the suggestion in here is to do the opposite. So the suggestion here is to do the opposite, and it might surprise you the effect doing the opposite has. So confront the avoidance. And here we go into an activity which is making life-affirming choices. And what we want to do in this little activity is identify where you are avoiding things. And the definition of this, or the description of this, is actually toxic avoidance. Toxic avoidance. Where are you avoiding something in your life? Where are you not facing up? Where you could actually resolve it by showing up. Have a think about it. Somewhere in your life, you are avoiding things in a toxic way. It might be not setting boundaries. It might be not showing up. It might be being distance or avoidance. It might be avoidance to go up and ask the girl out, or the boy out, on a date. There might be 100 other things that you're doing where you're not facing the issue. And so in here, there's 2 columns that you're going to write down. The first column is a toxic avoidance column. The second column is going to be the avoidance strategy to flip it, to do the opposite. What's the opposite to the toxic avoidance? And so you're going to have 2 columns. Column A is identifying your toxic avoidance, and column B will be practicing the opposite. What do you need to do? And it'll give you something in there to figure out where you can start to practice doing the opposite. And I would suggest, like they do in the book, do it very slowly with small things. Don't do some massive thing. Set a little boundary. Figure out a way that you can face up to what you're avoiding. Just in small, minute ways, little nudges. What happens in life is that some people or situations nudge, and before you know it, you're over in the corner. And you're thinking, how did I get here? Because you were very nice all the way, and now you're over there. Instead, we can get present, figure out what's going on, and just tweak it with a slight nudge back without being forceful. And in this activity, we are looking at refocus, reconnect, and redirect. The first step in this activity number 37 in the book is to refocus. And what the suggestion is here is to firstly take a deep breath, closing your eyes, and imagine the anxiety is like a child, an inner child, your inner child. And the first thing we want to do is to refocus that inner child. And refocusing that inner child by taking that rich, grounding breath is that we want to look at it and see what it needs. What is it that this anxious child needs? Look past the negative energy, past the overthinking, past the feelings in the body, and ask the question, what do you need? What is it that is missing? What is it that you're upset about? Listen intently to what answers might pop up. Know that when you talk to your anxiety child, it's looking to you for direction because it has no idea. That's why the anxiety has been running around inside you. It's looking for something. Listen intently. Find out what that is. What is missing? What does it need? And when you hear some answers, write them down. The next step is to reconnect. To reconnect to that inner child. Your inner child may be hurting. It may be hurting badly from something or someone or some situation from the past. And here's the trick. If you're going to approach your anxiety child with a declaration of war, don't expect the child to cooperate. Expect a battle. But if you approach your inner child, your anxiety, with an understanding, with a caring, to move forward with it, to help it, to understand it, it might start to release its answers to you. And so once you've refocused, you've asked the questions of the inner child, you've then looked at reconnecting with the inner child in a loving way, not a warlike way, you then move on to the third step in this process, and that is redirect. So I'll read out a passage here. Your anxiety child is probably demanding and wants you to stay put or avoid a situation. But you are the one in charge. This is your life, so in a firm and loving way, you decide to take your anxiety child with you as you do something that matters to you. Your anxiety child may protest, but this is your life. You have the power to choose what you do and where you go. Your anxiety child doesn't have that power unless you give a child that power. Perhaps it's time to refocus, reconnect, and redirect. After all, your anxiety is a child and it's part of you. This is how you cultivate a loving home within yourself so you don't get sidetracked when your anxiety child acts out. The next time you go out to do something you care about, if your anxiety child decides to show up and say, just say to that anxiety child, come along with me for the ride. And so the idea is we're no longer resisting, we're starting to accept, and we're moving forward, and we're going out to do the things we want to do anyway. Continuing on with my book review, Anxiety Happens. 52 Ways to Find Peace of Mind. Now, this book has a couple of recurring themes in different activities. And what I find is that there's 3 that I'm focused that popped into my mind. Number 1 was resistance. In particular, how the resistance is what causes our suffering with our anxiety. And so if you're resisting your anxiety, it causes even more suffering. And sometimes that suffering even creates fear of suffering, which is called secondary fear. And so the question is, what are you resisting? That's number 1. The second one is questioning thoughts. That pops up in a variety of ways where you ask yourself the question, is this actually true? Where's the evidence? Show me where on planet Earth this evidence is real. Now, look, sometimes, don't get me wrong, there's bad things happening. There's evidence afoot. But many of the things our brain is creating, and we have to uncreate them if they're not physically showing up. Otherwise, you will start to attract more and more of those things. So that's number 2, is questioning of thoughts, that thoughts are not actually real yet. And the third one that I picked up in this book is observing, allowing fear of fear, I've written down. And the observing is just observing the fear. And I've done a previous video on anxiety where I talk about the observer effect, where you can just float above yourself and observe yourself going through the anxiety. It's a method of disassociating in the moment so you can reduce that anxiety and start to see what you need. So that's 3 different things that I've seen inside this book that I found super useful, and the techniques are all leading down that path. So the first one was resistance, the resistance inside you, and doing the opposite in a variety of ways. The second one is questioning thoughts, so where you question your thoughts and then you see what's the evidence, and you start to realize sometimes there is no evidence. We've made a story up in our mind, connected too many dots, and come up with a completely different picture to reality. And the third one is observing. Just observing yourself going through these things, through the anxiety, the overthinking, and giving yourself some love by asking questions like, what do you need right now? What's missing? What is it that's popped up? The answers to these questions will resolve in ways that you can heal yourself, ways that you can calm yourself. When you've got the message, you can point a variety of techniques and ideas at those messages. All of this leads to an overall message that I get from the book, and that is to help people start to live their lives. In particular, progressing your life, moving forward in some way, shape or form, growing and expanding in some way, shape or form, and living your fuller life, the one that you know you really want in some way, shape or form. And so the idea is, this book is trying to get you to step out into the world, contribute, to love, and to get into action so that you're proud of what you live in life.